Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to be showing you my favorite chess opening for black, which is the Caro-Kann. So, the Caro-Kann works after e4 by white. This is the move you're going to face the most. So, yeah, I suggest you play it. So, what do you do after e4? Here you will play the move c6. So then there's three options I've seen happen. And that's either knight f3, knight c3, or pawn d4. Well, first we'll cover the most common one, and that's to take the middle. Here you're always going to play d5. And then here, a very common move I see is to push the pawn. Here, my favorite personal move is to play c5 in order to strike back in the center and in order to try to isolate these pawns and to win them back. My favorite variation is when white takes. So what you do here is you block in you move out your knight to prevent this pawn from going forward and to attack this one. So usually people start to chase this pawn as it's pretty weak. So what you do here is that you defend the pawn. And now you have a double attack on these two pawns. So you're pretty much guaranteed to win them. Here, your opponent might play something like knight f3, and that's it. Here, you're able to just take back here and just develop pieces as well as win pieces. So here, you already have a pretty solid position. Later on, you're going to be able to win this pawn. Yeah. Now, let's go back and see if they don't take. The variation I've seen the most is that the people play c3. Here, I would suggest to either take or to just continue with your standard development. When you take, you're usually going to have a more unforgiving opening. So, like, every mistake can be easily punished. So, I would suggest to do standard Caro-Kann development and just develop your knight. So after that, you might face a standard move like this. Here, you would want to bring out your bishop to g4, and in Caro-Kann positions, you would often want to trade this bishop off in order to create a solid pawn structure for this pawn. So this is a solid position, and you would play very standard chess from here. Okay. Another move I see is knight f3. Here, I would suggest to just continue with standard development like usual. It's pretty much the same. Move order, but like this. It's just pretty much the same thing. However, in these positions, you will often get the opportunity to take this pawn. And it's not, the purpose of it is not to really just win this pawn, but to threaten this knight. So, like, if you manage to trade this bishop for this knight, you're most likely going to be able to push this knight back, or to a position where it's much easier to attack and win development. For example, something like this could happen. So you take this, and then the queen takes, and then boom. So the pawn is attacking the knight. And then the knight has to come here, for example. Let's say the knight comes here, and you bring out your queen, and that's it. Let's say they don't advance. Let's say this happens, and another common variation is that they take. You're going to, of course, take back. And here, the most common move I've seen is to play either bishop here, which you would just block with your knight. But you could also even block it with your bishop, as you would often want to trade this bishop away. But I usually play this move. You don't really need to be scared of the bishop taking, as you're able to just take back. And from there, it's just pretty much standard chess. You might have worries about this gap. However, you're just gonna castle short side, and that's not really going to matter. So let's see if they play, for example, knight here. Here, you would want to always in Caro-Kann positions, you would like to trade this bishop for this knight, as this bishop is pretty much useless, as you're going to be closing this position. Okay, one of the best variations against the Caro-Kann is called the fantasy variation, and it's when you play pawn to f3. This reinforces the center, and it prevents the black from getting the entire center. So, for example, if you were to take here, then white has the entirety of the center, and they're pretty much winning. I mean, they have a slight advantage. So, against this, rather than taking, I would suggest to just... this prevents you from bringing out your bishop, so you're really gonna have to stick with it for a little bit. So I would suggest to play, for example, e6. Like this, you are able to develop your bishop, and later on your knight to here. Remember that in this position, you wouldn't really want to play a knight here, because you're gonna be easily threatened by these pawns. Okay, so what is your game plan with this opening? The basic idea of this opening is that you would want to, first of all, bring this bishop out and keep it pinned, and also remember that you would rather trade this knight off for this bishop in most situations. Then you get pretty much standard development. An important move in the Caro-Kann is to play e6, as you kind of create this hut for your bishop, and it sees most of the board, and it's very good in this position. Then for example, let's say white plays something like this. You're able to bring the bishop out here, and then just basic moves. In your games you would want to, okay, maybe not now because your opponent could fork you. However, you would like to play your knight either here or wait for a time to be able to strike with c5. This isn't really possible right now, but you could do it later on. But your game plan is to bring your knight out, not in this situation because you're able to be forked. However, here you might as well bring your knight to d6. You're able, then your opponent might develop a bishop. And here, you could take. I'm not exactly sure what to do from here, as you've got a very solid position. But you would want to short side castle and create maybe threats with your queen on this side of the board. So that's pretty much the basic idea of the Caro-Kann. So yeah, it's a pretty simple opening, but I would suggest you to look into it, as it is extremely good, and people face it a lot, especially since the biggest YouTuber, Gotham Chess, the biggest chess YouTuber, Gotham Chess, plays this opening and teaches it quite often. So you're gonna face a lot of people who play this opening, but now you know how to, first of all, play it, and second of all, play against it.